Over the past couple of days, from July 18th to July 23rd, Bungie hosted a beta for Destiny 2. At first, it was only accessible for those who pre-ordered it, but then it became available to everyone in the final 2 days. They also recently extended the beta for 2 more days, so for those who haven't tried it, you have until July 25th, 6 p.m. Pacific or 9 p.m. Eastern to check it out. Now, I personally have yet to pre-order Destiny 2. As someone who was really bummed by the first game, I have my doubts that the sequel will be able to win me back. But I figured I might as well give it a try and see what I think about it after I play the beta. One thing that I should immediately get out of the way is that if you enjoyed Destiny 1, then you will probably really enjoy Destiny 2. It's just more of what you enjoyed in Destiny 1, but better all around. It's prettier, it's bigger in scope in terms of level design and set pieces, it's got a lot of gameplay rebalances, and it's even got a few new subclasses. But other than that, you're going to feel right at home with this game. Everything from the look of the user interface to the feel of the gameplay mechanics will fit like a glove to Destiny 1 veterans. Now, what about for those like myself who didn't enjoy or were disappointed by Destiny 1? I can tell you almost definitely from the beta alone that those people should probably pass on Destiny 2. I played for a couple hours and man oh man is it a familiar game, sharing all of the same flaws and strengths. As far as strengths go, I can say that it's got the same rock-solid shooting mechanics as the first game, and that it's still a very pretty game. The environments in particular are more expansive and epic in scope compared to the first game, and some of the vistas are truly a sight to behold. The game's pre-rendered cinematic cutscenes also look pretty cool, even if they are few and far between. Now for the flaws, I would say that the biggest one is the game's level and mission design. Remember the good old formula from Destiny 1? Go from point A to point B, kill some enemies, and hear some exposition along the way. Deploy your ghost once you reach point B. Kill waves of enemies, hear some more exposition. Learn about point C, head to point C. Rinse and repeat? Yeah, it's all back in full glory. Just like the first game, there is not a shred of variety to be found in the game's mission structure. It doesn't help that all of the enemies I encountered throughout the beta were a lazy reshuffling of the same handful of enemy types. My experience with the beta basically amounted to shooting at wave after wave of the same hostiles over and over again, and it got boring real fast. It was the same familiar feeling that turned me off from the first game. We did eventually reach a boss battle at the end of the beta strike mission, and that was alright. It was one of the more dynamic and interesting parts of the beta. But even then, the boss had very little in the way of attack pattern variety and surprises, and while it was a challenging encounter, the difficulty mainly stemmed from the boss's bullet sponge nature. It had less to do with AI behavior, unpredictable attack patterns, and dynamic level design, and more to do with just having to shoot a ton of bullets to take the boss down. After shooting at the boss for a while, I did find that the initial wow factor went away, and I remember yawning halfway through the battle, hoping it would end a little quicker. I was bored. The beta did offer another more dynamic level though, the game's intro sequence, which has a scripted cinematic flair to it not found in other Destiny missions. But the key word here is scripted. While there was a lot happening in the background, very little of it actually affected your gameplay. It was a lot of style, but very little substance. It felt very Call of Duty-esque in that regard. Lots of explosions happening everywhere, lots of big shit clashing against each other, but none of it actually affecting what's happening to you. And at the end of the day, even the cinematic blockbuster of an intro sequence bogged down to the same old boring formula. Point A to point B, kill things, hear exposition, reach point B, kill waves of enemies, more exposition, go to point C, rinse and repeat. Not to mention that the intro mission also suffered from the same lack of enemy variety as the strike mission. It was just a copy-paste job of a handful of enemy types. So, long story short, both the intro and strike missions featured in the beta suffered from the same lack of variety in mission structure and enemy types as the first game did. Another flaw that both of the beta's missions shared was that objectives were often unclear. In the intro mission, there was one point where I had to destroy some turbines for a generator, and I spent a while shooting at what I thought were the turbines, but nothing was happening, and it took me a while to figure out that the turbines I had to shoot were sort of hidden and tucked away underneath in a location few people would have guessed to check. Not sure what the point of this was, but it was neither clever nor satisfying. It was just piss-poor level design that felt unnecessarily unclear and tedious. Going back to the strike mission, the game dropped you into these huge open areas, but all you had to go on were vague objectives like press forward or traverse deeper, with very little context for where you were headed, what you were actually doing, and why you were doing it. As a result, I found it was actually quite easy to get lost, and it got really frustrating at times. Now, I'm all for getting lost in a game if it can lead to new discoveries, like in Skyrim or Zelda Breath of the Wild. But the problem with Destiny's open world, both in the first and second games, is that the expansiveness of the areas are all for show. It's all just empty space with very little to discover, except for some copy and paste enemies that occasionally spawn in the area. It's all very empty, desolate, and a waste of space. Volume over density, basically. Much like Destiny 1, there is no reason to explore in Destiny 2. It's all just a salad mix of following the objective marker, listening to boring exposition, and killing waves of repeating enemies. I don't know how else to put it. Destiny 2's level design, mission structure, and enemy variety are as boring, tedious, and repetitive as they were in the first game. The last thing that I want to talk about is story. The game actually introduces an interesting synopsis. The last city is obliterated, the Traveler is neutralized, and the Guardians are stripped of power. The good guys have essentially hit rock bottom, and now they have to find new homes and gain new powers to fight back. It's a compelling premise that could potentially lead to some worthwhile stories. But if there's one thing that the beta revealed, it's that Destiny 2's narrative will suffer from the same problems as the first game. Most of the story is told through monotonous, boring exposition in between waves of enemies.
An elite faction of the Cabal, deathly loyal to their commander. But that is irrelevant. They are attacking the Traveler. We must get to it now.
What's worse is that a lot of the dialogue in this game is really awful, particularly the annoying dialogue from your ghost companion.
Oh, look, it's a Vex Milk waterfall. Can we stop and... Aww.
It's always just joking around and not in an endearing way. It gets really annoying after a while.
Oh, we're walking into the light. I think there's a metaphor here, and I don't like it.
It kind of reminds me of Mass Effect Andromeda, where the dialogue made it seem like nobody was taking their job seriously.
I think I really pissed that one off. Maybe because I shot him in the face.
I'm all for lighthearted moments, but when it's constant and consistently forced, especially during grave or serious situations, it just takes me out.
And the only way to reach it is down past those giant pointy drill bits? Good.
Unfortunately, most of the dialogue from Destiny 2's Ghost, who is always there with you, falls under the same trap.
This must be what the Cabal were looking for.
No, really? What gave it away?
How dare you?
And to make matters worse, the delivery of the dialogue is not all that great either. And what little dialogue you do get between characters, a lot of it sounds very unnatural and cliche Hollywood.
All right, Guardian. Time to kick him where it hurts.
You're not brave. You've merely forgotten the fear of death. Allow me to reacquaint you.
So combine the game's subpar dialogue with an exposition-heavy narrative, and you've got a story that has many of the same problems as the first game. There might be something compelling underneath it all, but it's hard to get invested when the story isn't presented in a compelling way. All that remains to be seen at this point is if Destiny 2 will avoid one of Destiny 1's greatest flaws and actually tell a complete story before resorting to DLC content. Alright, so at this point, I think you're starting to see the theme of my video. The short of it is this: if you played Destiny 1 and enjoyed it, Destiny 2 is more of the same, and you'll probably enjoy it too. On the other hand, if you didn't enjoy Destiny 1, then Destiny 2 is more of the same, and you probably won't enjoy it. But I feel like even those who enjoy Destiny 1 might be disappointed at how little progress there is in Destiny 2. Destiny 2's greatest flaw is that, from what I've played, it doesn't take a big enough step to earn that number 2. It's Destiny 1.5 at best. To me, a sequel is a balance of familiar and new, and unfortunately, Destiny 2 leans far too heavily on the familiar side of things. Now, don't get me wrong, Destiny 2, by most accounts, seems like it'll be a better game than Destiny 1, but it somehow feels far less compelling than Destiny 1 did. That's because Destiny 1 at least had the advantage of being a brand new IP offering a brand new experience, even if it didn't always live up to expectations. Destiny 2, on the other hand, doesn't have that benefit, so in retaining what made Destiny 1 such a flawed experience, it ends up feeling like just more of the same, a flawed retread without the new smell. And there are some areas where Destiny 2 even takes a few steps back, like in PvP multiplayer. Whereas Destiny offered 6v6, Destiny 2 will offer only 4v4 on all of its game modes. And look, I get that in some game modes, lower player count might be to the game mode's benefit, but I wish that the game had more variety, that it offered options, certain modes that are 6v6 or maybe even beyond that. It's also upsetting to see that Destiny 2 still only offers 30 frames per second on consoles. I figured if there was one hurdle to get over for the sequel, it would be that one, the frames per second, because in a first-person shooter, nothing's more important than smooth frame rate and that tactile feeling of characters directly reacting to your input. I get that it's difficult to attain 60 frames per second in this generation of consoles, especially because of weak CPU, but that's all the more reason for Bungie to have waited a couple more years before releasing Destiny 2. And by the way, Destiny 1 only came out less than 3 years ago, in case you weren't counting. This was a game that was originally advertised as a 10-year experience. So yeah, I think they could have afforded to wait a little more time, but now that they're releasing it so soon, it just comes off as a recycled, rushed sequel. I know I'm coming off really negative in this video, but I really was hoping that the beta would surprise me in ways that the gameplay footage didn't. But the beta only served to confirm further what I knew from the start. Destiny 2 is just Destiny 1+, and as someone who didn't enjoy Destiny 1, I was hoping that the sequel would draw me in, because I do think there are aspects of the lore and the artistic direction that are compelling, but it's just not a fun game for me, and based on what I played in Destiny 2's beta, it looks like Destiny 2 won't be fun for me either. So I can say once and for all that I'll definitely be skipping this game. This is just my personal experience with the game though. I have nothing against anyone who did enjoy this game, but I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Did the beta convince you to purchase the game, or did it convince you that this game's just not for you? Also, if you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon to help our community remain independent from corporate interference. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out!